So what I put together here was a model that we can use to basically calculate a number of the variables related to some of the problems that we're dealing with. What we see here is we have the input area for the sales price, we have the input area for the variable cost, the tax rate. If in fact there's a tax rate then that's given, we can add that. If there's no tax rate, we put a 0 there. Then we have the fixed cost, and we then also add our projected after-tax profit. Now keep in mind that if we're dealing with a break-even point, what we're looking for is a profit of 0. But many times the calculation is looking for an after-tax profit or is looking for a profit. Now let's look at these are the input sales over here. I want to focus on the output that's coming out over here. And I think it's very critical for you to understand where these variables are actually coming from. So what you see here is the contribution margin. So if you look at the model here, the contribution margin equals D1 minus D2. So D1 is the sales price, D2 is the variable cost. That is our contribution margin. I also calculated here, many of the problems don't actually require this, but I've added this, is the contribution margin percentage. Now we click up our cell here, and what we have is we have the contribution margin divided by the sales price. The next item is the revenue. Revenue is essentially the number of units that we calculate, and I'll get to that in a minute, times our sales price. And the number of units is our typical formula that we're looking at, which essentially is our fixed cost plus our pre-tax profit divided by our contribution margin. So what you see here is D4, which is our fixed cost, plus D16, which is our pre-tax profit divided by the contribution margin, which is in this case is $9. The one piece that gets a little bit complicated, and I know that I talked about this in the other problem, but I just want to emphasize this, is when we're looking at our after-tax profit, we have to back into that the pre-tax profit. So what we see in terms of the pre-tax profit is the after-tax profit divided by 1 minus the tax rate. So if we're looking for a pre-tax profit, which is what we need to calculate any break-even point, we're looking for an after-tax profit divided by 1 minus the tax rate. So those are the calculations that we have here. Let's go through a specific problem, and the specific problem in this case is problem 3.8, I believe. So what we have here is the sales price is $12. The variable cost is $3. In this case, we're not really looking at a tax rate, but the fixed cost is $36,000. And what we have here is in terms of the output, the contribution margin is $9. Contribution percentage is 75%. The number of units is 4,000 units, and the revenue is going to be $48,000 given the number of units, which is 4,000 times the sales price is $48,000. Now, let's look at the rest of the problem and see what we can come up with. How many must Reed sell to earn $18,000 in operating income? If we simply change this to $18,000, and again, we don't have any issues related to tax rate at this point in time. So what you see is the tax rate is 0. The pre-tax profit and the after-tax profit is both $18,000. And in this case, what we need to do is we need to sell 6,000 units. Selling 6,000 units is going to give us $72,000 worth of revenue. The next problem, what operating income must Reed earn to realize an income of $16,200, assuming the tax rate is 40%. So now what we want to do is we're going to add the tax rate, which is 40%, And our after-tax profit, the realized profit, is $16,200. So what we're looking at here is that in this case, again, contribution margin stays the same, contribution margin percentage stays the same, but what we're looking for is we're going to need to sell 7,000 units, which is going to give us a pre-tax profit of $27,000 at a 40% tax rate, making our after-tax profit $16,200. And we're doing this based upon a 7,000 number of units that we're selling. So I'm going to post this model into the announcements, and hopefully this will help you work through some of these problems. Thank you.